This week, three stories show Japan trying to turn overseas appetite for its food into something bigger: health credibility, premium value, and even a rescue plan for its own farms. Natto exports have tripled as global wellness demand grows. Rice giant SHINMEI is framing overseas Washoku demand as a way to revive Japanese agriculture. And Sujahta Meiraku wants to export the Shinkansen ice cream experience, not just the dessert. Japan's most polarizing food is quietly becoming a functional food export hit. Natto exports have tripled. Japan's natto exports tripled from 2017 to reach 5,248 tons in 2025. China and the United States were the top two export destinations. And there's real pricing headroom. A standard 3-cup pack sells for around 100 yen, while premium natto can cost roughly 3 times that. Here's what matters. Natto has always been an acquired taste, but overseas it's being reframed as a functional health food, and that changes the whole conversation. When buyers in China and the US are pulling in fermented, protein-rich, gut health products, the taste barrier becomes a wellness selling point. And that premium tier, at 3 times the base price, shows there's margin to be captured, not just volume. For exporters, this signals that Japan's fermented foods can travel on a health narrative that commands a premium. That link between overseas demand and Japanese production runs even deeper in our next story, where it becomes a matter of national food security. Rice giant SHINMEI is betting that overseas love of Japanese food can rescue Japan's own farming sector. The backdrop is stark. Japan relies on imports for more than 60% of its food supply. Its farm workforce has collapsed from over 4 million 3 decades ago to around 1 million today, and the average farmer is now over 68 years old, with only about 10% under 49. This is a structural bet, not a marketing one. SHINMEI's logic is that if global demand for washoku keeps rising, that overseas appetite can create the economic pull needed to sustain Japanese rice farming, giving aging, shrinking farm communities a reason and a market to keep producing. In effect, it's trying to convert foreign demand into a domestic agricultural lifeline. For the industry, this signals that exports are no longer just a growth channel. They're being positioned as a tool for Japan's own food security. From securing the harvest at home, we turn to a very different export idea: selling an experience rather than an ingredient. Sujahta Meiraku wants to take Japan's famous Shinkansen ice cream experience global. The signature ice cream has been served on Japan's bullet trains for over 30 years. After vending machines replaced the onboard cart service, sales rose to 120% of previous years. And the export strategy is built around tourism-driven retail and experiential dessert concepts. The interesting part here is what's actually being exported. This isn't just a premium ice cream, it's a consumption ritual, the famous rock-hard scoop that travelers associate with riding the Shinkansen. That vending machine result, lifting sales to 120%, proves the experience works even without the cart, and it points to a scalable, self-serve retail format. By tying the product to tourism and the memory of the train ride, Sujahta is selling nostalgia and novelty together. For food brands, this signals that a distinctly Japanese ritual can itself be the product, packaged, exported, and monetized. Put these three stories together, and one pattern stands out. Japan is working to convert overseas demand into something more strategic than simple sales. Natto turns a challenging food into a premium health export. SHINMEI turns global washoku demand into a lifeline for domestic farming. And Sujahta turns a train ride ritual into an exportable experience. The overarching trend is value framing. In every case, the raw product is almost secondary. What's being sold is a story: health, food security, or nostalgia. For businesses watching this space, the takeaway is that Japan's next export advantage lies less in the product itself and more in the narrative wrapped around it. The companies that define that narrative first are the ones that will capture the premium. For the cultural story behind this week's market moves, head to Waden. Link in the description. See you next Monday.